My mom forgot to save me a seat at her birthday dinner. But when the restaurant manager asked one simple question, the entire room went silent. My name is Lily Anderson. I'm 27 years old, and for most of my life, I've been the extra in my own family. Not unwanted, not unloved, just optional. The kind of person people assume will understand if they're left out. The one who adjusts, who doesn't complain, who keeps the peace. That's been my role for as long as I can remember. Growing up, my older sister Emma was always the center of everything. The achievements, the attention, the celebrations. If she won something, it was a family event. If I did, it was nice. I learned early not to expect too much. Not because I wasn't capable, but because I wasn't prioritized. Still, I stayed close to my family, called regularly, showed up to events, remembered birthdays, because I believed something simple. If I kept showing up, eventually, I'd matter the same way. So when my mom invited me to her birthday dinner at a nice upscale restaurant, I didn't hesitate. Of course I'll be there, I told her. She sounded warm on the phone, almost excited. It'll be a small dinner, she said. Just family. That word again. Family. I should have known better than to read too much into it. But I did. I even bought her a thoughtful gift. Something she had mentioned months ago. Not expensive. Just meaningful. Because I still wanted her to feel seen, even if I didn't always feel that way. The night of the dinner, I got ready carefully. Simple dress, light makeup. Nothing overdone. Just enough to feel confident. Because even if I wasn't the center of attention, I still wanted to show up as my best self. When I arrived at the restaurant, it was already busy. Soft lighting, elegant tables, quiet conversations filling the space. I spotted my family almost immediately. A large table, everyone seated, laughing, talking, glasses raised. For a moment, I just stood there, watching, because something felt off. Then I noticed it. There was no empty chair, not one. I frowned slightly. Maybe I was early? Maybe they were still setting up? I walked closer, slowly. My mom saw me first. "Oh, Lily, you made it," she said, smiling, like everything was normal. I looked at the table again, counted quickly. Every seat was filled. "Yeah," I said, "I'm here." A small pause. Then I asked the obvious question. Where should I sit? That's when things shifted. Subtle, but real. My mom glanced around the table, then back at me. "Oh," she said, "I thought you said you might be late." I blinked. "I said I'd be here," I replied. She gave a small, awkward laugh. "Well, we didn't realize you'd be on time." On time. I felt something tighten in my chest because that wasn't a mistake. That was an assumption, an expectation, that I wouldn't matter enough to plan for. My sister didn't even look up from her phone. Someone else at the table shifted slightly, but no one offered a seat. No one moved. No one said, "Here, take mine." Just silence. I stood there, still holding the gift, still trying to process what was happening. "You can just grab another chair," my mom added casually, like it was simple, like it wasn't a big deal. I looked around. Every table was full, every chair taken. This wasn't a place where you just grab a chair. They had reservations, assigned seating, structure, and yet they hadn't made space for me. At my own mother's birthday dinner, I forced a small smile. "Right," I said quietly, trying not to make it awkward, even though it already was. I stepped back slightly, not wanting to stand directly at the table anymore, not wanting to feel like I was intruding. That's when a server walked by. He paused for a second, noticing me standing there, then glanced at the table, then back at me. "Hi," he said politely. "Are you joining this party?" Before I could answer, my mom spoke. "Yes, she is," she said quickly. The server looked at the table again, then at me. A small pause. Professional. Observant. Then he said something simple. A question. But the moment he asked it, everything changed. "Would you like me to bring another chair?" he said. Or was she not included in the reservation? Silence. Immediate. Heavy. Because that question wasn't just about seating. It was about intention. And for the first time that night, no one at that table had an easy answer. For a second, no one spoke. Not my mom. Not my sister. Not anyone at that table. Because the manager's question didn't just hang in the air, it exposed something they couldn't quickly explain away. Was she not included in the reservation? I felt every eye shift. From him to me, and then back to my mom. She let out a small laugh. The kind people use when they're uncomfortable. "Oh no, of course she's included," she said quickly. It was just a small mix-up. A mix-up. I didn't say anything. I just stood there because I wanted to see how this played out. The manager didn't move, didn't rush, didn't nod. He simply looked at the table again, counted silently, then looked back at me. "All right," he said politely. "I can arrange another seat." But even he seemed to understand. This wasn't just about a chair. This was about planning, or the lack of it. My mom turned to the table. "Can someone just squeeze in a bit?" she asked. Her tone was light, casual. Like this was nothing. Like I wasn't standing there, feeling like I didn't belong. A few people shifted slightly. Barely. My sister sighed. "Loud enough for everyone to hear." "There's no space," she said. "It's already tight." Of course it was. Because they had planned it that way. Exactly full. No extra. No room for me. The manager glanced at her, then back at my mom. "I can bring an additional chair," he repeated, "but it may be slightly outside the table arrangement." Translation: I wouldn't actually be part of it. Just near it. Close enough to be present. Far enough to not belong. My mom nodded quickly. "Yes, that's fine." Fine. I looked at her. Really looked this time. Because something in me had shifted. Not hurt. Not even anger. Clarity. Because this wasn't an accident. This was a choice, and I was seeing it clearly. The manager gave a small nod. "I'll be right back." He walked away. And for a moment, it was just me and them again. No buffer. No distraction. Just reality. "You didn't have to make it awkward," my sister said without looking at me. I almost laughed. Because that line, "It always comes after something is already awkward." I didn't, I replied calmly. "I just showed up." She rolled her eyes slightly. "It's not a big deal, Lily." There it was. The dismissal. The minimizing. The thing that always followed. "It's just a seat." Just a seat. I held her gaze for a second, then nodded slightly. "Right," I said, because arguing about it wouldn't change anything. "Not here. Not like this." My mom leaned in slightly. "We didn't think you'd be on time," she said again. Like repeating it would make it reasonable. Like that explanation made sense. "I told you I would be," I replied. She didn't respond. Because she knew. She just hadn't cared enough to plan for it. A few seconds later, the manager returned. With a chair. He placed it at the edge of the table, slightly off to the side. Exactly like he said. Close. But not really part of it. "Will this work?" he asked. I looked at the chair, then at the table, then at my family. Everyone already settled, comfortable, established. And me? An afterthought. I smiled slightly. "Actually," I said, "I'm okay." My mom frowned. "What do you mean?" I picked up the gift I was still holding, the one I brought for her, carefully chosen, thoughtfully wrapped. "I just wanted to drop this off," I said. Her expression shifted. Confusion, then concern. "You're not staying?" she asked. I shook my head gently. "No." A pause. "Why?" she asked. Like she didn't understand. Like the answer wasn't obvious. I looked at her. Calm. Steady. Because you didn't plan for me to be here, I said. Not loud. Not emotional. Just honest. Silence. Because that truth couldn't be softened, couldn't be ignored. It was a misunderstanding, she said quickly. I nodded. Maybe, I replied. But it still happened. I placed the gift on the table, right in front of her. Happy birthday, I added. Then I stepped back, creating space. Physically, emotionally. But before I could turn away, the manager spoke again. This time, not to my mom, not to the table. To me. Miss, he said politely. May I ask you something? I paused, turned slightly. Yes? He looked at me for a moment, then asked a question so simple, but so unexpected, that it changed everything. Would you prefer a private table instead? And just like that, the entire situation shifted again. For a second, I thought I misheard him. A private table? I repeated. The manager nodded. Yes, he said calmly. We have one available. Silence fell over my family's table again. But this time, it felt different. Not awkward, not tense, just exposed. Because now, the situation wasn't about squeezing me in anymore. It was about choice. My choice. My mom leaned forward quickly. Oh, that's not necessary, she said. She can just sit here. Sit here. Like nothing had just happened. Like I hadn't been standing there. Unplanned. Unaccounted for. Unimportant. The manager didn't respond to her. He kept his attention on me, waiting. Respectful. Professional. But also aware. I looked at the table again. Everyone seated. Comfortable. No one moving. No one making space. And suddenly, that chair he brought earlier didn't feel like an option anymore. It felt like a reminder of where I stood. I took a slow breath, then looked back at him. Yeah, I said quietly. I'd prefer that. My mom blinked. Lily, she started, but I didn't look at her. Not this time. Of course, the manager said with a small nod. Right this way. He gestured toward the other side of the restaurant. I followed, without hesitation, without looking back, because for once, I wasn't adjusting. I wasn't shrinking. I wasn't trying to fit into a space that wasn't made for me. I was choosing something else, something better. The private table was small, elegant, by a window, soft light, quiet, peaceful, completely different from the crowded table behind me. This okay? He asked. I nodded. It's perfect. He pulled the chair out for me, waited until I sat down, then handed me a menu. If you need anything, just let me know, he said. Thank you, I replied, and I meant it. Because that small moment, that simple question, he didn't just offer me a seat. He offered me dignity, and I took it. As he walked away, I finally let myself breathe. Really breathe. Because I didn't realize how tense I had been. Until I wasn't anymore. I glanced across the restaurant. My family was still there. Still talking. Still pretending everything was normal. But I noticed something else. They kept looking over. At me. Not constantly, but enough. Enough to know this mattered. More than they expected. A server came by. Took my order. Polite. Easy. No tension. No awkwardness. Just normal. And for the first time that night, I felt like I belonged somewhere. Even if it wasn't with them. A few minutes later, my phone buzzed. A message from my mom. Come back. You're overreacting. I stared at it, then locked my screen. No response. Because this wasn't an overreaction. This was a reaction to something real, something clear, something repeated too many times. Another message came in, this time from my sister. You're being dramatic. It's just a seat. I almost smiled because they still didn't get it. Still thought this was about furniture, not respect, not effort. Not being seen. Just a seat. I placed my phone face down. Ignored it. Because, for once, I wasn't going to explain myself. Dinner arrived. Warm. Perfectly presented. I took a bite, and something strange happened. I felt calm, not sad, not angry, just clear. Because distance has a way of showing you things you couldn't see before. And right now, I could see everything. My role, their expectations, the pattern, and most importantly, my choice. Across the room, I noticed movement. My mom standing up, looking in my direction. Then, she started walking toward me, and I knew this wasn't over yet. I saw her coming before she reached my table. My mom, walking a little too fast. Smile forced. Energy tense, like she already knew this conversation wasn't going to go the way she wanted. I didn't move, didn't stand, didn't prepare anything to say. I just stayed where I was, calm, present, ready. "Lily," she said as she reached the table. "What are you doing?" I looked up at her. "I'm having dinner," I replied. Simple, clear. She let out a small breath. "This isn't funny," she said. I tilted my head slightly. "I'm not trying to be funny." A pause. She glanced around the table, the quiet setting, the space, then back at me. "You're making this into something it's not," she said. There it was again. Minimizing, reframing, trying to control the meaning. I put my fork down gently, looked at her directly. "No," I said calmly. "I'm responding to what it is. Silence. Because that difference, she couldn't argue with." She pulled out the chair across from me, sat down without asking. "We didn't do this on purpose," she said. I nodded slowly. "Then why did it happen?" I asked. She hesitated, just for a second, but it was enough. "Things got busy," she said. "We were organizing, people were confirming." I held her gaze. "And you forgot me?" That question landed. Because now, it wasn't vague. It was direct. She shifted slightly in her seat. "It wasn't like that," she said, but she didn't explain further. Because she couldn't. Not honestly. "You didn't forget," I said quietly. "You just didn't make space." Silence. Heavy. Real. Her expression tightened. "Lily, that's not fair," she said. I almost smiled. Because fairness had never really been part of this. "It is," I replied. Not sharp. Not emotional. Just certain. She leaned forward slightly. "You're embarrassing me," she said under her breath. There it was. Not "I'm sorry." Not "I understand." Just concern about how it looked. I leaned back in my chair, calm. "You did that before I even got here," I said. That line stopped her. Completely. Because it was true. And truth doesn't need volume. It just needs clarity. She looked away for a moment, then back at me. "You could have just taken the chair," she said. I nodded. I could have. A pause. But I shouldn't have to fight for a seat at my own family's table. Silence again. Because that wasn't dramatic. That wasn't emotional. That was basic. And we both knew it. She exhaled slowly, trying to regain control of the conversation. "You're blowing this out of proportion," she said. I didn't react, didn't argue, just watched her. Because now I understood something. This wasn't about convincing her. It was about acknowledging reality. "I'm not coming back to that table tonight," I said. Final. Clear. Her eyes widened slightly. "What? Why not?" I held her gaze. "Because I don't feel welcome there." That sentence, it changed everything. Because it wasn't an accusation. It was a feeling, a fact. And you can't argue someone out of how they feel. She opened her mouth to respond, then stopped. Because, for once, she didn't have a quick answer, a quick excuse, a quick dismissal. Just silence. "You're choosing this?" she asked finally. I nodded. Yes, because that's what this was. A choice. My choice. Not forced. Not reactive. Intentional. She sat there for a second longer, then slowly stood up. I didn't raise you to be like this, she said. I looked up at her, calm. You didn't raise me to accept being overlooked either, I replied. That one hit. I could see it, in the way she paused, in the way her expression shifted. Because deep down, she knew. She just hadn't expected me to say it out loud. Without emotion, without apology, without backing down. She didn't respond, just turned, walked back to the table. And for the first time that night, I didn't feel small. I didn't feel left out. I didn't feel like I needed to fix anything. I felt steady, grounded, clear. Dinner finished quietly, peacefully, on my terms. And when I stood up to leave, I didn't look back, because I didn't need to. But what happened the next day was something I didn't expect at all. Something that proved this night hadn't just changed me. It changed how they saw me too. The next morning, I woke up expecting silence. Maybe a message from my mom. Maybe another comment from my sister. Something defensive. Something dismissive. Something that tried to turn last night into not a big deal. But instead, there was nothing. No missed calls. No texts. Just quiet. And honestly, it felt peaceful. I made coffee, sat by the window, and for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like I needed to explain myself to anyone. Not my choices. Not my feelings. Not my boundaries. Because what happened last night was clear, and I had handled it the only way that made sense to me. Around noon, my phone buzzed. A message from my mom. I stared at it for a moment before opening it. I've been thinking about last night. Short. Simple. No defensiveness. No excuses. Just a start. A second message came in. You were right. I blinked. Read it again. Because that wasn't what I expected. Not from her. Not this quickly. Then a third message. I didn't make space for you. I exhaled slowly. Because those words, they mattered. Not because they fixed everything, but because they acknowledged it. Clearly. Finally. I'm sorry. I sat there for a moment, phone in my hand, coffee untouched. Because this was new. Not the apology, but the understanding behind it. There was no but. No justification. No shifting blame. Just ownership. And that changed everything. I replied after a few seconds. Thank you for saying that. Simple. Honest. Because that's all I needed to say. A minute later, she called. I hesitated, then answered. Hi, I said. Her voice was softer than usual. Hi. A small pause. Then